So this is a complete blueprint to starting your personal brand in 2026, even if you're a complete beginner, you have 0 followers, or you've never posted a piece of content before. By the end of this video, you're gonna understand how to build your personal brand from scratch over the next 12 months, how to plan, build, and execute your strategy to generate more opportunities than you know what to do with by the end of the year. But before we actually get into the step-by-step guide, I want to share how I got started with my own personal brand, because I think it's going to give you a bit of perspective on what works and what doesn't. And when I first started posting content online, I had no idea what I was doing. I would spend hours writing posts, editing videos, only for most of it to go unnoticed and really have no impact whatsoever. I get no likes, no comments, no traction, and I actually get no leads from my business off the back of it. And I remember thinking maybe this whole personal branding thing isn't for me. But the truth was, I was just overcomplicating everything. I was trying to look perfect instead of just looking real, and I was trying to chase virality rather than looking for things that actually grew my business. And the moment I flipped that mindset, when I started documenting what I was doing rather than pretending to be someone I was not, everything started to change. I started getting inbound leads, speaking engagements, inquiries, clients, all from publishing content. And that's when I realized that building a personal brand isn't about being famous, it's about getting found. So in this video, I'm going to break down the exact framework I wish I had when I started. From building a strategy, creating content that actually builds trust, and scaling across platforms, I'm going to be breaking it all down in this video. This is everything you need to grow your personal brand in 2026. Let's get started. Now, what you should really understand about personal branding is that in every industry, there is always a select few who rise above the and capture the lion's share of opportunities. And it's because they understand that there's a new way in. In 2015, 2016, you won by being the best. You had the best product or the best business, and that's how you succeeded. But in 2026, being the best is not enough anymore. Actually, probably competitors that are maybe worse than you that are getting better results because they are building their personal brand. So not only do you need to be really good at what you do, you also need to be well known for it as well. The truth is, in the modern day, you are now the product. People want to hear, consume content from, and understand and know the person behind a business, not just the brand itself, because they want to actually trust you. There is a massive trust gap that we're facing. In fact, trust has never been lower. PwC have been studying it for years, and they found that there's a 60-point trust gap between how much people think they are trusted and how much their consumers actually trust them. And it's because, well, in the modern day, there is more competition than ever. Every industry is becoming commoditized, and consumers are a little bit more intelligent and a bit more skeptical than they've ever been before. And that means it's hard to stand out. It's really difficult to actually demonstrate your value. That's probably why you feel like sometimes maybe your industry's best kept secret. And it's hard to actually build trust with your audience. But trust is the one thing that we need if we're actually going to build an audience and turn them into opportunities. That's why you're pretty much lighting your money on fire if all you're doing is what I call send and spend marketing. Just sending more DMs, more emails, spending more on ads. And sure, I'm not saying these things never work, right? But when was the last time you spent a considerable amount of money, let's say £1,000, $1,000 plus, on something just from an ad? You probably didn't, right? You probably did your research, you probably looked for reviews, you probably consumed some content online. And Google actually proved this with their 7-11 4 rule, which states that it takes 7 hours of interaction across 11 separate touch points in 4 different locations for someone to actually trust you enough in order to buy. And it's really the mere exposure effect, right? The more exposure to something we have, the more familiarity we get. We start to prefer that source, we start to like that person or that thing a lot more, and then we start to trust them. And by leveraging the mere exposure effect through your personal brand, you can become the go-to choice in your industry, and you can stand out amongst all of the competition. And when you do that, you're going to open yourself up to generating more opportunities, more leads, greater leverage, a better network, even charging higher rates for the work you do. And we've got a system that we've been using over the last 5 years or so to help over 350 entrepreneurs and executives now to build their personal brands. And we call it the PAC method. We first position you as an authority in your industry, we then amplify your audience. And we call it the PAC method. First, you need to position yourself as an authority in your space. Then you need to amplify your ideas and your knowledge to hundreds of thousands of people every single month. And then you need to convert that audience into opportunities. I'm going to take you through exactly how you can do that in this video. And it all starts with what we call positioning. Now, the reason positioning is so important is because the messenger matters. If I show you this guy, would you listen to him for advice on investment? Probably not, right? If he was telling you where to invest your money or how to build a business, would you listen to him for advice on that? Probably not, right? Would you listen to him for advice on beer? Yeah, you probably would, right? Because he is positioned as someone that knows his beer inside out, but knows nothing about investment or business. And that's purely a judgment that we make on the surface of something. And this is compounded over time when you start to put content out as well. So who says something matters just as much as what they say. If this guy here and Warren Buffett gave you the exact same piece of investment advice, I guarantee you'd listen to Warren Buffett's a little bit more. His version, you would definitely listen to a little bit more. Even though it's the same advice, you take the advice that Warren Buffett gave you with a little bit more gravitas and credibility because of who it's come from. And for those of you that are just thinking, I don't really need to do this, I'll just focus on delivering a great product. Well, if you just focus on delivering a great product, it's not actually going to be clear what you do, why you're credible, or how to actually work with you. And that's going to mean that you're always getting overlooked, whilst lower quality competitors are sweeping up mindshare in your industry. So instead, you need to build out the 3 elements of world-class positioning. There are 3 things we build here. The first is what we call a promise. And your promise really tells your audience why they should care, what they're actually going to get out of consuming your content and following you, knowing who you are in the first place. We've got to remember that people naturally are selfish individuals. Humans are very selfish beings, right? And we need to have a reason selfishly to get something out of doing anything, right? So if someone's going to follow you, engage with your content, work with you, there needs to be a clear reason why they should work with you. And that's your promise to your audience. You then also need proof. And proof is third-party evidence that you are credible. So this could be things like results you've achieved, milestones, social proof. This allows people to actually trust you because truthfully, there's going to be lots of people making these big promise claims, but actually not that many people can back it up with cold hard proof that they are good at what they do. So proof is going to make you credible. And finally, we have packaging. Packaging is all about distinguishing you from everyone else. So this is what makes you unique. And this could be some sort of personality trait that you have that is maybe different to everyone else in your industry. It could be a unique mechanism that you use to get results for your clients. It could also just be very contrarian or unpopular opinions that you have about your industry that you're willing to stand by. So this packaging is all about packaging up that unique combination of skills, experience, personality, values, opinions, mechanisms into one thing that's going to make you unique and distinguished from everyone else in your industry. And once you have that, your promise, proof, and packaging statements, you're going to have a really credible positioning strategy that instantly sets you apart from everyone else. It's really important to nail this down before you go onto content, which we're actually going to look at in a moment. Because if you don't have this before you produce content, well, you risk spending hours, potentially investing thousands in producing content that is just not going to land because you are not seen as an authoritative messenger. So once we've got our positioning in place, we can start looking at how we actually amplify that to reach more people. And there are a number of channels you can use to amplify your voice. You can use organic, so this is publishing content on social media. You can use organic media. You can use paid media, so you can run ads to get in front of people. Or you can use earned media, so features in industry news, press, podcasts, etc. The one that everyone should start with is organic media. Really the goal with each of these, by the way, is to turn your audience into an owned audience. That's like a newsletter list that you own. You control that audience. Everyone should start with organic content though. The reason everyone should start with organic content is because, well, it's free to actually get started posting content. Anyone can do it. It's accessible. It's a great way to test your messaging before you actually move on to any of the others. And there's a really, really simple content strategy that you want to use. By the way, when we work with clients, and we've helped over 350 people build their personal brand now, we follow this content strategy every single time. There is nothing we do outside of this that is different for our clients. This is exactly what we follow. Because actually there are only ever 3 types of content that you need to publish if you want to get results. Because there's only ever 3 things you need to do with your personal brand. You need to get in front of new people. So you need to increase the pool of people that knows who you are. You need to build trust with those people because you want more people to then trust you. And then you can turn those connections into clients. There is nothing you can do outside of those 3 things that you actually need to do to build a profitable personal brand. Just increase the pool of people that at least knows you exist. Start building trust with that pool of people and then convert that pool of people that trusts you and knows you into opportunities. And that gives us 3 types of content we should publish. We have growth content to build our audience, authority content to demonstrate our expertise, and we have conversion content to generate opportunities. And generally speaking, you want to be publishing between 40 to 60% growth content generally, between 40 to 60% authority content, and between 10 20% conversion content. There are some times where you might drop the growth-based content or the authority-based content below 40%. For example, if you were just starting out and you didn't have an audience whatsoever, you might do a little bit more growth-based content. So you might look at doing something like 60, 30, 10 if you were just starting. If you've kind of got an audience already, you've got a few thousand followers or a few thousand connections on LinkedIn, you might not necessarily need to do as much growth-based content, and you might be looking at doing a 30, 60, 10 split. But generally, you're going to be within these sorts of ranges in terms of the percentage of your content that falls into each one. And this will start to form a content funnel. So what's going to happen here is through our growth-based content, which is going to be this stage, we're going to be increasing the number of people coming into our audience, the number of people that knows we exist, right? These are all people that we could potentially sell to in the future, okay? But we also need to be trust them, because just having lots of people know who you are but not trust you is kind of vanity, to be honest. And that's why you get some people who, they do have hundreds of thousands of followers, but they're not actually able to monetize their audience because they haven't built authority. They haven't pushed people down the funnel to the next stage. So your authority content is going to take this pool of people that knows you exist, and it's going to build trust with them. They're going to start to see you as an expert. They're going to start to see you as someone that can solve their solution, and they will pay good money for you to solve that solution if they see you as an authority. So not only is your authority content building trust, it's also increasing your rate. And then we have our final conversion content, which is where we need to be a little bit more promotional in what we're doing to actually turn our connections into clients and turn our followers into buyers so that we can make money off the back of our personal brand. Because ultimately, that's what we all want to do, right? And there are a few things you need to be aware of when it comes to producing content. Every piece of content you create should have a reason to read or a reason to watch, reason to consume. So you need to hook people in the first 1 to 3 lines or 1 to 3 seconds. You want to give people a reason to trust you, so you need to give them a reason to trust you on this particular type of content or this topic. You want to give them a reason to remember, so that they don't just watch a video or read a post, give it a like, and then never hear from you again. You want them to actually remember who you are off the back of your content. And then you want to give them a reason to engage, because social algorithms are driven by engagement. And the more engagement you get, whether that's likes, comments, shares, or even just view time on your content, the more people the algorithm is going to push your content to. And that's going to work across any channel pretty much that you're publishing. And really the way to do this is through an infinite loop of curiosity. Great content consistently opens and closes loops. And whenever it closes a loop in our minds, it opens a new one. And when I say a loop, I mean a gap of curiosity, somewhere where we want to know the answer to something, but we don't have that information yet, because then our minds seek to fill that gap. Great content constantly opens those loops and then closes them consistently, and then opens them again. If you want to make sure you're really growing your bank account though whilst you're producing content, and this isn't just all for vanity, there are a few things that you should remember. Really, it's the mindsets that people need to go through in order to actually buy from you, right? So think about this question: what does someone actually need to believe about you to make the decision to work with you? Well, they need to believe that they have a problem in the first place, right? They need to know that they actually have a problem. So some of your content should be geared towards highlighting the problem that people have. They also need to believe that the problem is costing them money, or we could replace this with time, or it could be ego-based. Ultimately, those are the main drivers that are going to drive human decision-making. They need to believe it's costing them one of those things, but they also need to believe that you are someone they can trust to solve it. They might believe those two things, but not see you as someone that's trustworthy. So you need to prove through your content that you're trustworthy as well. And then you also need to show that your way is the best way of doing this, because often there are a number of ways to solve a particular problem. You've got to show them through your content that your way is the best way. And if you do those 3 things and you can take people through this process in your content, you're going to make a lot of money from the posts you put out. However, you might do all of this and you might post great content and still not make the amount of money that you are hoping for, or not generate the number of leads that you're hoping to from your personal brand. And that's because actually only about 3% of your audience are what we call now buyers. So now buyer is someone that is, they're warm, they understand the problem they have, they see you as the go-to for solving it. They're going to be the ones that reach out in your DMs and they say, hey, I've seen your content, would love some help, can we work together? And that's great, that's what we all want. But it's actually only about 3, maybe 5% of your audience that are ready to buy now. 35% of people might buy in the future. They're just not quite ready yet. 60% of people are not going to buy. And that's okay, because our goal with personal brand is to ensure that this 60% are either going to refer someone who will, or spread the message. So they're going to engage with your content and get it in front of more people that will. Right? So this 60%, that's not a completely lost audience. A lot of people make a massive mistake of just completely disregarding this 60% who are interested in what you do but probably won't buy. That's a huge asset that you can leverage. Actually though, it's this 35% here that we want to pay the most attention to. And the reason this 35% might buy in the future but won't buy yet is because of something called the commitment gap. They are simply not quite ready to make the commitment towards working with you. Because if you think about it, consuming content on social media is very low commitment, right? It's free, it's pretty easy to do, it's fast, and it's very personal. You can do it from the comfort of your own home on your phone with a cup of tea. Very, very simple and low commitment to do. Working with you though, it probably costs a significant amount of money, right? You might be charging a few hundred, a few thousand, maybe even 5 or more figures to work with you. It can be quite hard for them to do that. You know, there's a lot more effort that's required on their end. It's going to take a bit of time to get results, and maybe their ego's at stake. They've got to admit to someone that they've got a problem they need help with, right? So there's a lot at stake here. It's quite high commitment. And people are not willing to jump this gap in commitment on their own. So what we actually need to do is we need to provide these gradual jumps, these gradual steps, so that people are more confident making these jumps. There are a number of barriers that might prevent them from doing that. Maybe their pain or desire isn't strong enough. They're not convinced that your way is the best. They're not convinced you'll actually get results. They don't trust you enough. Maybe they'll think it'd be too much effort, or they just don't see it as a priority right now. So when you create these smaller jumps, you're gradually bridging that commitment gap and making it easier for people to make larger and larger commitments to you over time. The way we might do that is by, of course, publishing social content, but then driving people to what we call a lead magnet. So a lead magnet is probably higher commitment because it takes more time to consume. People are having to sacrifice something, contact information, and maybe a bit of ego in order to get access to it. It takes a little bit more effort. There might even be a small price tag associated with it. Then we can nudge them towards maybe a one-to-one call. Again, this is slightly higher commitment because they have to be in a very particular place at a very specific time. And again, admit to another human on the end of a phone or in person that they have a problem that they want solving. And at that point, they might then be ready to actually work with you and pay whatever the sum is that it is to work with you. And throughout this whole process, we're building up even more touch points on Google's 7-Eleven forum, which you'll remember from earlier in the video. And what this means is that with a conversion system like this, well, you actually know who's interested. You can start to actually nurture those people into leads. You can monetize your connections authoritatively without having to spam them constantly. And you convert 30 to 40% rather than the traditional 3% that most people hit. And that is the entire system to building a highly profitable personal brand online. If you do those 3 things, if you position yourself as an authority in a space, if you amplify your ideas through posting content on social media, and you build conversion systems to increase the amount of commitment people are willing to make to you over time, you are going to build a wildly successful and profitable personal brand. You're going to have a constant stream of new people coming into your network who now know you, they like you, and they start to trust you, and they are ready and willing to actually buy from you. And this is going to be far more effective than any other marketing strategy that you can use this year because, well, people trust people. They want to work and do business with people they trust. So if you found the contents of this video useful, I recommend you hit subscribe on the channel because there's going to be loads more like this coming very soon.